As we lick our wounds from a self-inflicted kick in the teeth against Leicester last night, the transfer talk comes thick and fast as Spurs eye up a new goalkeeper. Skippy's move opens up a move potentially for a brilliant midfielder, and an ex-Spurs academy graduate looks likely to leave Chelsea. All this and more on today's daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, as ever, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Please do press that like button. Please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Daily Spurs-based content and transfer news from all across the Premier League during this transfer window. So do press subscribe if you want some of that. And also you can become a member. Only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below, and it really helps me to make this daily content for you. Now, I'll get kind of to my more considered reaction to last night's draw at Leicester once I've gone through the latest Tottenham transfer talk, because let's face it, it's less depressing than what happened last night, but I will give my kind of the day after match reaction once I've gone through the Tottenham transfer rumours. So let's get started with it. Oliver Skipp's £25 million move to Leicester. I haven't discussed it with you guys yet. It looked like it was happening last week, but I haven't made a video since Friday. That's £20 million plus £5 million in add-ons. Spurs initially were not keen to let Skippy go, actually, because obviously he was club trained and homegrown, but it was a bid that was too good to turn down, and I personally think it's the right move for everybody. I've said it all along, Skippy needs games. I think he could prove a really brilliant signing for Leicester if they give him the games, and he will work hard for them. And he just wasn't right for Ange Postecoglou's Spurs. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it was difficult for me to see him with the Leicester players in the crowd yesterday. But yeah, £25 million, if bonuses come through, is a good move for Spurs, and we can reinvest that in somebody else. And as it stands, this move will accelerate Tottenham's move for another midfielder. And Spurs have identified Wolves' João Gomez, not for the first time, and are expected to open talks with Wolves for the Brazilian international. Now, he scored against us, didn't he, last season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, had a great game. And a lot of people who are saying that Tottenham need a number 6 to kind of cover back. Well, Gomez could be that player. However, and I'll get into this more when I go into my match reaction from the Leicester game, I thought before his unfortunate injury, and let's not forget, he gets injured a lot. Rodrigo Bentancur was incredibly impressive in that 6 role last night. Just getting about the pitch, he was a little deeper than Basuma was last season. He was sweeping up and kind of clearing up fires, putting out fires on the few occasions in that first kind of 60-65 minutes that Leicester did break on transition. And whilst Bentancur was there, I thought he played really, really well. And I hope that kind of what looks like a head injury isn't too bad. But clearly Tottenham are looking for another midfielder. That's why the Conor Gallagher links were going on. And I wonder if we will get someone like a João Gomez in before the end of the window. Do you like João Gomez? And if so, what kind of money would you be willing to pay for him? Would you go up to kind of 40-45 million pounds, which is what I imagine Wolves would insist on? Let me know in the comments box below. A new rumour now that Tottenham are actually looking to add a goalkeeper in this window. I think this is one that has come up because maybe we've got more players out of the door than perhaps the club expected in this one window, and maybe they're accelerating what they thought they might leave till January or next summer, because let's face it, Fraser Forster, in the few times that he's played for Spurs, he is starting to look his age. He doesn't really get down as quick as he used to, and maybe he's not ideal for the kind of distribution-focused goalkeeping that we're looking to do. So Spurs are now apparently looking to add a keeper this window, and it's Tommaso Martinelli from Fiorentina who has caught their eye. He's an Italian under-19 international, and maybe even more importantly than that, his agents are CAA based. Now, I've mentioned before, this isn't something that I love to talk about, who each player's agent is, but it's becoming more and more of an important factor in deals of where players go, which clubs they join. And we do a lot of dealings with CAA base. I also wonder whether Tommaso Martinelli is someone that maybe Don Fabio Paratici has suggested to the recruitment side. We heard last week, didn't we, that Paratici is still close to Daniel Levy, but he is not officially involved in any transfers since Johan Lange has come in. So maybe he's doing more of a kind of consultancy, scouting type role. And Martinelli could be one of those players. So keep an eye out for that one. Just want to talk a little bit more about Wilson Odobert, who obviously signed for Spurs at the weekend. Burnley boss Scott Parker, who obviously just joined the club in the summer, replacing Vincent Kompany, he has given some quotes wishing nothing but the best for Wilson Odobert. He said the following: "It's a shame to see Wilson go. He's obviously a top talent that has been nurtured and brought through here. But an opportunity for Wilson at Spurs is an incredible one. I spent 4 weeks working with Wilson and I saw every bit of his quality every single day. He was a credit in terms of his professionalism and his quality. Everything about him was superb and everybody at the football club wishes him nothing but all the very best at what is a top club. I understand that. We have no doubt that he has a really bright future ahead." So for any of you maybe watching who have been a little bit doubtful as to whether the signing of young 18, 19-year-old Wilson Odobert is a big enough name for Spurs, does Scott Parker's quotes once the player has left Burnley, does that give you any more positive feeling about it? Or do you really feel that we should have saved that money and still put it on like maybe more like a 60, 70 million pound player? I also looked into some of the Burnley fans' reaction to try and get an idea of what they felt about Odobert and to kind of see what we're looking for. And I think it's worth hearing this because obviously last night, I think it's fair to say, and I'll go into it more when I get into the match reaction, it's fair to say that neither Son Heung-min or Brennan Johnson really had their best games. I actually thought Johnson was okay in the first kind of 20, 25 minutes. But after that, a lot of people, certainly in the comments of the watch-along I was doing on We Are Tottenham TV, and make sure you subscribe to them if you don't already. During that watch-along, a lot of the comments were slagging off Brennan Johnson. And Odobert is likely to replace Johnson or Son if he comes into the team over the next few games. So very interesting, I think, to hear what the Burnley fans' reaction was when Odobert left. He said, in terms of, they were asked, this was on X, Twitter, they were asked, how they thought Odobert would do at Spurs having left Burnley. And here are some of the comments. I said, "You've snapped him up early in his career. Fantastic player. You'll love watching this lad play. Fast, exciting, great skills, and an eye for goal. Fantastic move for him, and you've got a potential great." Another one said, "Incredible potential, blistering pace, can beat a man to unlock defences, and so young. Such an exciting talent." Another one said, "One of a select few who enhanced their reputation last season in our squad. Lightning pace and a decent finisher. Maybe lacking the physicality needed for the Prem right now, but very high ceiling. We'll be interested to see how he performs in a high possession side." Don't forget, obviously, Burnley last year, they tried to play the right way under Vincent Kompany. Very high press, really high line, but obviously against some of the bigger teams in the Premier League weren't able to keep the ball as much as they were in the Championship. So what I like about that is that I think Odobert will be used to the kind of high intensity, the high press, but he'll have more opportunities on the ball at Spurs than he did at Burnley because we obviously, these days, under Big Ange Postecoglou, keep control of the ball in most of the games. Some more comments on Odobert. "He's decent, but not at your level yet. Needs game time, so a loan back or a loan to an Everton or Wolves type of team would do him good." That seems like quite a... some of the other comments, most of the other comments have been very positive. This one seems a little bit more like he's good, but maybe some game time off the bench is what you should expect in the short term. That's assuming that we wouldn't loan him anyway, which I don't think we would. Here's another one. He said, "Not the finished product, but bags of potential. Could easily be one of the best players in the league as he's still only very young. I wish him all the best. He always played his heart out for us." I love these kind of commonalities, that he's a really hard worker as well as having super talent on the ball, because Ange will insist on that kind of work back and forward. He played someone else, this is the final one, said, "He played for my club before Burnley. He's one of the best players I have ever seen. Take care of him." So that's one of the fans of one of the French teams. Was it Troy, I think he played for before Burnley? So I think these are all very positive comments about Wilson Odobert, and I, for one, am excited to see whether he gets straight into the squad after, what will it be, kind of 4 days training before the Everton game on Saturday. Will he get into the squad? What do you guys think? And if so, let's assume he's on the bench, who would he replace on that bench? I think the likelihood is that he would replace either Ben Davis or Timo Werner. Ben Davis' spot on the bench is really covered because Jed Spence is on there and he can cover either right or left back. And Timo Werner obviously plays in a similar position to Odobert, but I think it would be a big call from Ange Postecoglou to tell Timo Werner he's not in the squad, having only just signed him up on loan for another season. Meanwhile, and this does not surprise me at all, Fenerbahce boss Jose Mourinho, and in fact, some news today about both of our previous bosses, both Mourinho and Antonio Conte. But Fenerbahce boss Jose Mourinho is ready to approach Spurs about signing Giovanni Lo Celso. Aston Villa, Roma and Real Betis are also interested in Lo Celso, who's been told that he is not in Postecoglou's plans, as we know. I think we've known that all summer, and can leave for about £13 million. Well, what that tells me is the English club to English tax and English club to English club tax and English player tax is huge, because for Lo Celso, who is like a mainstay in the Argentinian World Cup winning side, Copa America side, to go for only £13 million when Oliver Skipp went for £20 million to go to £25 million. The English player tax is so real. But I think if we can get £13 to £15 million from Lo Celso, get his wages off the bill, because he just doesn't play enough, does he? That's the problem. Then I think that'll be a good move, and will allow us to get that other midfielder in that I was talking about, possibly João Gomez, or maybe more realistically, Spurs will have someone up their sleeve who we do not know about, because that is exactly what happened with Odegaard. We had no links to him, and it just happened overnight, and that is the way that Johan Lange does it. So let's see what happens. I really don't want to say that it will definitely not happen for Eberechi Eze, but that is looking less and less likely, isn't it? Ange Postecoglou, in an interview earlier this week, was asked about his feelings on the transfer window, and he said the following. For me, I've just as much anxiety as the fans, because it's the part of the year that I have least control over. It would be great if I had total control over everything, including what other clubs did, but that doesn't happen. I understand where the fans sit with it. My role within that is to try and stay calm, stay disciplined, and make sure that come the end of the window, which is the most important time, we've had another positive window in that we've made our squad and our team stronger. He also said that the window is an important part of the process, and I think it comes back to what I've often said. Part of recruiting is understanding that you're not recruiting footballers, you're recruiting people. What kind of person are they? Why do they want to come to Spurs? Are they ambitious? Do they have an open mind? Are they prepared to take on the enormous challenge of creating something special at the club that are looking for success? All of these kind of things, and hopefully the stuff that they've already identified, so that when they come here, they feel like it's the right place for them. Hopefully they walk into a dressing room of like-minded individuals who all have that kind of mindset. That helps them visualize what we're trying to build. It's probably an easier process for guys, new players coming in this year, because they walk into a dressing room and the guys will have absolute clarity and give them absolute clarity of what we're all trying to do. Whereas last year it was more about me trying to create an environment, me trying to paint those pictures to everyone, not just the players and staff, but everyone at the football club. Hopefully this year, for the guys we've brought in so far, they walk into a dressing room and they can feel exactly what we're trying to do. And then Ange was asked what made him keen to sign Dominic Solanke, and I'll speak more about Solanke's performance against Leicester in a minute when I go into that match reaction. He says there's no secret that we love to press, and Dom's got a great work ethic and he scores goals. He is a presence and scores different types of goals. I think the way we play suits him, and I really liked where he was in his career. I'm a big one on understanding the person's motivation, and he was obviously an outstanding young player. He got to some big clubs, but it never worked out for him, and it's what you do in that scenario. Do you think it'll never happen to me? Do you think it'll never happen for me? Or do you work your way back? And he's done remarkably well to get himself into a position where he scored 19 goals in the Premier League last season, which we all know is a fair feat, and he's got himself back to a big club. I love that aspect because I know he has the right sort of mentality. It was a whole range of things that meant I was really keen to bring him in. Sometimes these things are about timing, and I thought it was a good time for him, but also a good time for us to bring him in because we have a really young group. He's one that is proven at Premier League level, and he improves us. This doesn't mean that Sonny can't play through the middle during the year, but I think we look a much better team when he's out wide on the left. I mean, maybe some of those, because these were quotes from before last night's game, and I can imagine some of you kind of maybe bristling at that a little bit because Sonny didn't have his best game, and obviously Solanke missed a few chances, but I'll go into that a little bit more in a second. Finally, just the last bit of transfer news. Jamie Donnelly, as I'm sure you know by now, has signed a new contract with the club until 2029, so that shows our commitment to him as a long-term possibility, both in midfield, attacking midfield, or maybe as that inverted fullback where he played during pre-season. But in the meantime, he's joined Leyton Orient on loan for the remainder of the 24-25 season. I think that's a good move. Leyton Orient is very nearby. I imagine Donnelly will still do some training with Spurs during the week. and then play proper senior football at the weekend. It'll be interesting to see how Donnelly does. Okay, so moving on to last night's 1-1 draw at Leicester. I mean, first of all, I thought we were absolutely outstanding in the first half. We should have been 3 or 4-0 up, and yes, it's frustrating that we let them back in it in the second half, and it was a very classic kind of Premier League game where if you don't take your chances, you don't get a second, then the opposition will get a chance and they will get the fans back up. And in the end, actually, we could easily have got beaten in that game, and maybe previously we might have done, because we'd let the moment and the opposition fans getting on top of us, and they're kind of, as they scored, or when they scored, Leicester, all their players kind of upped it by 5 to 10%, and we were on the ropes for a little bit there. But look, we didn't lose. We did draw. It was disappointing. I just mentioned Solanke and how keen Ange was to bring him to the squad, into the squad. I think the most important thing about Dominic Solanke's performance last night was that he kept making excellent runs. He had 2 chances with his head in the first half. One of them, I think, particularly was kind of unlucky because he headed it almost too well. The one that kind of bounced in front of the keeper. But he got a lot on it. And almost if it had come off a bit more off the side of his head, it would have gone into one of the corners. The first one he didn't quite connect with. That's the one where he came in at the back post and he needed to get pace in almost to what Harry Kane, I think, would have done was head it right back where it came from into the far corner. And actually Solanke was unlucky because it kind of hit more his shoulder than his head. And then obviously there was the gilt-edged chance in the second half. And what I'd say is I think if that's not Dominic Solanke's first game for Tottenham Hotspur, I don't think he snatches at it as much. His first touch was good, got it out of his feet, and then he's just trying to put his laces through it because I think he's a bit anxious. It's his first game. He hasn't got a goal yet. I think further into the season, when he scored a few goals, I think he will place that into the far left-hand corner, and I think it would have been a goal. So, key thing, he gets himself into the right positions, good chances. I was disappointed that Spurs stopped really crossing the ball in the second half. I thought we got so many crosses in the first half, one of which, of course, was Maddison's assist to Porro for the brilliant goal. Why did we stop crossing it so much in the second half? Maybe Leicester made a little tweak to stop that from happening, but it was a really dangerous tactic and something that was great for us. And actually, I thought maybe we should have played Kulusevski instead of Brennan Johnson to get even more crosses in, because now we have more of a danger with Solanke in the middle. But I thought Solanke did well, kind of 6.5, 7 out of 10 for his debut. That wasn't too bad. And I thought what really impressed me as well about Solanke, as well as making the runs, because of his hold-up play, which I thought was really excellent, back to goal stuff, we were able to keep pressure in that final third a lot longer than we have been able to a lot of last season. And that will improve us. And it's a shame, like I said, that we drew, but we should have won the game in that first half. I'm going to go on to talk about all the players and what I thought of their performances, but I do want to particularly mention Son Heung-min and Brennan Johnson. Like I mentioned, I thought Kulusevski, because we were playing against a side who kind of did play a lot of the game with 10, 11 behind the ball, I thought Kulusevski could have maybe started instead of Brennan Johnson, and it was unlucky that that Kulusevski didn't start, considering how good he's been in pre-season. I think with the deep kind of block that Leicester were playing, we should have had Kulusevski on, getting it onto his left foot from the right, whipping in crosses to Dominic Solanke. I thought he looked pretty good when he came on in the 10 for Maddison, though, in the second half. And then with Son Heung-min, I just think, and I said it on last night's watch-along, if we are not making chances for Son Heung-min either in behind or outside the box where he can cut in onto his right and try and hit it into the top left-hand corner, as the goalkeeper looks at it, then, it's not ideal. I love Sonny, of course I do, but we need to make him chances because he's our elite finisher and we need him to be in those positions. His build-up play was okay in the first half. Some good little triangles between him and Maddison and Bentancur and Destiny Udogie in that little half space. But I think Sonny will be a bit disappointed with his performance, and he did look a little bit upset on the bench last night. Let me know what you think in the comments below about some of those things I've talked about. I'll just go through the players who played. I thought Vicario looked pretty comfortable all game. He didn't have a chance with the goal. I wasn't desperately impressed with the fact that he shouted at Bergvall. I thought when Bergvall made that mistake in the second half after they'd scored their equaliser, Christian Romero had put him in a really difficult position, and Bergvall didn't really have anywhere to go. So it wasn't great. I don't think that Vicario shouted at him, but also when you're a goalkeeper, it is your job to keep yourself on your toes and to tell players what they should be doing. But it didn't look great. Porro, what a technician he is. There is nothing that player can't do. The only disappointing thing with Porro is when he got injured in the second half, and let's hope that injury isn't too bad. Looked like a roll of the ankle. Let's hope it's not a ligament injury. But he's just got to go down there. He's really just got to go down and let us bring on someone for him, because he wasted about 3 or 4 minutes trying to run off that injury, and we were down to 10 men during that time, and that could have been incredibly dangerous. And also it could have been a time where if we'd had 11 men on the pitch, we might have scored. So that was a bit disappointing, and it's not the first time that that's happened with Porro. I thought Destiny Udogie, considering he hadn't played for so long, was fantastic last night. I really did. I think he looks great. He's a bit rusty still, but he played the entire 90 minutes. And he's just one of the best fullbacks in the league, especially in that inverted fullback role. We're so lucky to have him. Romero and Van de Ven, I thought, played very well. So good to have them back. It was, I think, a little bit Romero's fault, the equaliser. I think he ran past Jamie Vardy, ball watching a little bit when the cross was just about to come in. I think he's got to sniff the danger there and just realise Jamie Vardy is the big danger. Not just because he's free at the far post, because he's their best striker and probably the best striker in Leicester's history. So smell the danger, stay on the danger man there. But other than that, I thought they had decent games. Like I said, Bentancur I was impressed with. I think Pat Matasar maybe arguably our weakest performer on the day. He did one thing, which was, it was offside anyway, but looked like Leicester were through, and he used his legs and his engine to come back and block a shot, which was very impressive. But on the ball, he's not a technician. And I saw something that Windy from The Extra Inch, brilliant podcast. If you don't listen to it, make sure you start. He said something interesting, which is that having Pat Matasar and Brennan Johnson both starting together when they both are kind of straight line runners rather than players who can dink in and out or go either way, maybe it leaves us a little bit one-dimensional on the right-hand side, and I kind of agree with that. On to James Maddison. I thought he was excellent yesterday, back to his form, always wanting the ball inside and outside of the foot, manipulating it, and it was his assist, obviously, for Pedro Porro's goal, and long may it continue, Madders. And I've talked a lot about Sonny, Solanke, and Brennan Johnson. I thought Archie Gray looked really composed when he came on. Obviously, we've got a great young player there, very excited. Bergvall the same. I've talked about his little mistake. I didn't think that was really his fault. Richarlison, I mean, in a way, there's almost no one else you'd want that chance in the last second of the game to fall to, but I don't know whether he thought he was inside the near post rather than outside, but he just went for it with pace, and he didn't need to. He just needed to do what Pedro Porro did in that first half and let it flick off his head, and he didn't, and therefore he missed the chance. And look, Richarlison, I don't think he's going to get that many chances, and if he'd scored that yesterday, maybe Ange would have had to put him in at number 9 against his old club Everton at the weekend, so he'll be very disappointed with that. But as we know, Richarlison's not had a lot of training. He's been unfit, and it was just him coming on at the end. Jed Spence looked okay, and Timo Werner, I was kind of surprised he brought Timo Werner on. Didn't really do a lot, and as I said at the top of the show, it'd be interesting if Odibert gets in the squad at the weekend, whether that will be instead of Timo Werner. Before yesterday's game, just moving on to some more quotes from Ange Postecoglou. Ange was asked about the coming season and some specific players. He said the following about his how he usually does in his second season. He says, "Usually in my second season, I win things. That's the whole idea." Very brave, Ange. Very brave. These are quotes, like I said, from before last night. But look, to be fair, I am not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Look, it wasn't a great result, but we didn't get beaten. And don't forget, we drew away at Brentford first game last season. So if we can bounce back against Everton, and it might be a good time to play Everton, considering they got smashed by Brighton at the weekend, I think then we can go into the next couple of games, which are harder, Newcastle and Arsenal, with a bit more positivity. But anyway, Ange goes on. He said, the first year is about establishing principles and creating a foundation. Hopefully the second year is going on to win things. Of course, it's easier said than done, particularly in the Premier League and the competitions we're in. But that's always the way I've looked at it, is that the second year you should be in a position where you can push on, depending on how that first year has gone. Last year we had some really good moments. Obviously we also had some tough times. I think we learned as much from the tough moments as we did from the good stuff, and hopefully that means we're in a decent place. We're definitely a better prepared team than we were last year. He going on to say, I don't know if I expect a big jump in the second season, but I expect what I expect all the time, which is to do my job and see what that brings. I'd suggest it's not by accident. We'll improve and see where that takes us. What the end of last year showed is that we're not rock solid in having a real belief in what we're trying to do. That's only natural. It's not unusual in my first year that it takes time for these things to become truly embedded, and you've got to go through some tough times to reveal those things, because if you don't go through tough times, how do you really know? It's not like I never felt the group were totally all in on what we were trying to do. It's just that it's still up to me to lead them through that. I think we're still in that phase. I'm still going to be the major driver in becoming the team that we want to be. That's okay though. That's part of the process. I feel we're better prepared. The players are better prepared even mentally in knowing what we have to tackle this year and how we're going to tackle it if we go through difficult times, which we invariably will because every team does. And maybe invariably we already have from last night. Hopefully going through what we did last year means that we don't have such a big disparity between our best and our worst. Well, look, I think these are decent words from Postecoglou. And look, if you take the first half in consideration last night, you'd say we were pretty much at our best. And then just that little period in the second half where we allowed them back in and then lost our heads a little bit, maybe shows us somewhere near our worst. But we didn't concede another goal. We were strong. And by the end, after that long stoppage for Bentancur, actually, I think we then could have gone on to get the winner. And it's a shame we didn't. But like I said, I think it's important that we didn't lose. Ange was asked on Spurs whether Spurs are a much better team with Sonny on the left. He said, I definitely think as much as the injuries at the back cost us last year, and they did cost us, that was mainly because we lost 3/4 of our back line for a big chunk of time. But I still felt it was up front where we were most sure and could improve the most. A lot of that was that Richie, when he played, was outstanding, but he had a lot of injuries last year, so then we had to play Sonny inside. You know, it was Brennan's first year at the club. He's only 22 and his first year at a big club. But I still thought he did well. We had to sign Timo because we lost Perisic and Solomon first or second round of games. So we were down 2 wingers. I really felt it was the area we needed to bulk up in the off-season. And just going into the season with Dom and Rishi there, 2 real good presences in the striking position. It doesn't mean Sonny can't play through the middle during the year, but I think we look a much better team when he's out wide on the left. That's the exciting bit that we're looking for improvement. We needed to improve in the front third, and we have with bringing Dom in. Ange was also asked about James Maddison. He said, I've sensed in Madders since he's come back that he's really determined to have a big season and hopefully get himself back in the England frame. But more importantly, for us, hopefully get himself back to the form that we know he can have. Well, like I said, I thought James Maddison was excellent last night. What did you think of Madders last night? I think it helped that it was at Leicester. You know, he really knows that ground. He knows the dimensions, the peripheral vision, everything. The cross for the goal was excellent, but just more for me, his want to get on the ball all the time, being the quarterback, making things happen. I was impressed with him, and when you're looking for positives to take away from a difficult result, the fact that maybe that will have given Maddison some confidence going into the game, I still say what we need from Madders is one of his free kicks. He's a brilliant free kick taker. He hasn't scored one for Spurs yet, and I think when he does, his confidence will be right back up there, and we can get what we got from him the first 10 games of last season. And was also asked about, this is obviously, like I said, before the Leicester game, he was asked about talk of Jed Spence having an attitude problem. These are really interesting quotes because Jed Spence is clearly now someone who's going to stay in the squad all season. I'm excited about that. He said, re the attitude problem. That's probably something that, whether that was right or wrong, as a person and as a player, Jed has taken responsibility for it and not allowed it to be part of the conversation this pre-season. For me and all the coaches, we've had absolutely zero issues with his attitude. He's trained really well. He's fit into the group brilliantly. That's on him. He's the one who hasn't allowed it to become an issue. He's had a good pre-season. He trained really well. He seems to have fit into the group really well. I don't think left back is his obvious position. I think he's more of a right fullback, but the fact that he can play out on the left, again, gives us some good options into a season where we have a European football that's going to give us more challenges. It was quite obvious last year that whenever we had disruption in terms of injuries or suspensions, our performance dropped a fair bit. We're trying to narrow that gap. Hopefully, having Jed as part of our squad allows us to do that. He's training well, he's available for Monday, and I'll make those decisions at the weekend. As I said, that was before Leicester, and Jed Spence did come on last night, didn't he? Guys, let me know what you think about Ange's quotes there. I thought worth bringing them to you because I hadn't done in a video previously. I know it's a bit odd that they were from before the Leicester game, but how do you think they fit with where Spurs are at the moment? Are you kind of glass half empty after that Leicester result, or do you think it's all part of the process and everything he's saying kind of rings true with where we're at, which is where we saw last night, which is a first half of excellence and a second half of a little bit of maybe lack of experience, lack of leadership, and we still need to improve on that front. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I thought I'd bring you a little bit about Antonio Conte because it's like repeating everything repeating itself once again. He is not happy with his situation at Napoli. He's only just joined as Napoli manager this summer. They lost their first game 3-0 to Verona. Before the game, though, Antonio Conte said this. See if you can hear anything familiar in this. I expected a difficult situation, but not like this. I expected positive surprises, but it's been hard to find any. I expected better. Napoli finishing in 10th last season isn't a coincidence. Whoever thinks it was just bad luck is far from reality. It's a complicated situation, you know that very well. I'm sorry that it's all been blocked, what can I say? Our mantra must be to give 200% and go beyond our limits. We must be humble and patient. I don't know when Napoli will become competitive. It could be 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. Wonder what will happen next. That's what I'm thinking. It's really hard to wonder what Antonio Conte might do next because after the game that they then lost 3-0, the fireworks really started. He said, I'm the coach and it is right that I take full responsibility. I humbly apologise because the second half was unacceptable. We went behind and then we melted like snow in the sun. There is something to be ashamed of and there is a lot of work to be done in all respects. I will now have to apologise to the Neapolitan people who show us so much affection and passion. Beyond the transfer market discussion, what is worrying is seeing the second half and that at the first difficulty we melted like snow. I arrived in Naples with great enthusiasm, great desire. I can make myself available in any situation. If I can help Napoli, I will. Well, Conte, this all sounds very familiar. I can't see you lasting very long at Napoli. The amazing thing for me, Napoli finished 10th last season, but the season before that they won the league. So for Conte to say, they'll never be competitive or it'll take ages, they were competitive a season before last. Mate, you've probably got the bones of that squad. Just make it happen. Anyway, he's such a strange man. Anyway, guys, before I just briefly go on to the other Premier League transfer news doing the rounds, please do press that like button if you haven't already. It really helps the video get up the algorithm, get more people seeing it. I really appreciate your support. Please press subscribe if you're not a subscriber. I bring you daily Premier League transfer news, but also mainly Spurs content as well. And also, if you are a subscriber, but you know some other Spurs fans or other people who might like daily Premier League transfer news, please ask them to come and subscribe too. And you can become a member. Only £1 a month really helps me to make this content for you. All the details in the description box below. Let's get started with the Premier League transfer news, though. Once again, Georgia goalkeeper Giorgio Mamardashvili has his heart set on a move to Liverpool, and Valencia will let him leave when they've lined up a replacement. However, Man United are now in for Mamardashvili as well, but can only get involved if they trim their squad and raise funds by selling Jadon Sancho, who, even though he has made it up with Erik ten Hag, is still a possibility to leave the club to try and bring funds in. Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal, this is moving over to the Etihad Stadium and Manchester City. Al Hilal are looking at Kyle Walker and João Cancelo to potentially bring in. That's according to The Guardian. Kyle Walker, I think, ever since he's had some family issues, to say the least, has been looking for a move away, and a last big expensive move to Saudi might be one that suits him. Meanwhile, a big story that I'm sure you've heard about in the last 12 hours or 24 hours or so is that İlkay Gundogan may well be moving back to Manchester City. He upset the Barcelona board by saying some home truths after last year's Clasico, and Guardiola is up for bringing Gundogan back. However, he has also received approaches from Qatar, Saudi Arabia and other clubs, but don't be surprised if Gundogan, City's former captain, comes back. I wonder, Spurs fans, let me know what you think. If Gundogan were to come back to City, would that mean that they wouldn't move for Eberechi Eze, and that could free up a potential move to Spurs if they can get their budget and funds in order? Over to Liverpool. Joe Gomez was left out of Liverpool's squad for their win against Ipswich at the weekend, and he is exploring a possible transfer with Newcastle, Villa, Fulham and Chelsea. Don't forget, guys, if there is a transfer rumour, Chelsea will be involved. They are all showing an interest in the England defender. Meanwhile, staying with Chelsea, Federico Chiesa is still someone they're looking at, and they're trying to explore a potential swap deal between him from Juventus with Raheem Sterling, who I'm sure you saw got his his agents, to release a statement because he was left out of the Chelsea squad for their loss to Manchester City at the weekend. I'm not sure about that one. But, you know, footballers do footballers things, and Sterling, he has a lot of power because he has 3 years left on an extremely lucrative contract at Chelsea, and they're clearly trying to get him off the books. The Conor Gallagher and João Felix move, Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid, João Felix to Chelsea, is now done. Unbelievable that Chelsea are buying João Felix and putting him on like a 6-year deal. I don't know what they're playing at. I really don't know what Todd Bowley and Clearlake think they're doing, but anyway. Aston Villa still in talks to buy Feyenoord's right back Lucharel Gertrude. Atalanta are also interested in the Europa League side, but you'd think he'd go to Villa over them. Newcastle are interested in Chelsea's Noni Madueke, £30 million, but with a loan deal first. Madueke, another player on a huge long contract at Chelsea. They only bought him, what was it, last year or the year before? Now willing to let him go. Crystal Palace have rejected a fourth bid worth £65 million from Newcastle for Mark Gahey. And an alternative target for Newcastle could be Chelsea's Trevor Chalobah, who is admired, apparently, according to TalkSport, by Eddie Howe. Dominic Calvert-Lewin could still leave Everton this window, with Sean Dyche keen to sign a midfielder and needing to get funds in if that is going to happen. Meanwhile, over at Everton, this is one for Spurs fans. Dele Alli, who is a free agent but training with Everton, will be given some behind closed doors games to prove his fitness by the club before they decide whether to offer him a new deal or not. Brighton are trying to get Matt O'Reilly in from Celtic. He's another one that was on Spurs' list over the summer. They've offered £28 million for him. Brighton doing big guns, really spending that Premier League money this summer. Meanwhile, Crystal Palace are advancing in talks with Maxence Lacroix. That is if Gahey or Joachim Andersen, who is interesting Fulham, do leave. Oliver Glasner considers Lacroix as an ideal choice for replacement. Sander Berger is now looking like he's going to go to Fulham. Man United were interested in him, but Fulham have left negotiations for Scott McTominay for Man United and therefore have gone for Sander Berger from Sheffield United. Brentford expect Ivan Toney to join Al Ahly in the Saudi Pro League. However, in not a huge shock, Chelsea could be tempted in making a late move for Toney. Brentford are looking for £50 million for him. Over to South London and Arsenal. Negotiations between them and Real Sociedad keep going for Mikel Merino. However, Real Sociedad are not willing to lower their valuation for the 28-year-old. And finally, Forest are still working on their deal to sign Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal for around £25 million, but Arsenal want £35 million. That is the end of today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News, guys. Once again, please do press that like. Please do subscribe. Let's get closer to that. I'm at just over kind of 10,500. Let's get up towards 15,000 as quickly as possible. And do become a member. Only £1 a month. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Cheers.